Right, so last night, or the early hours of this morning, our time here in the UK, Israel finally launched its now weeks-long threatened third attack on another sovereign nation, as once again it struck Iran completely unprovoked. And whilst Iran has once again announced it absolutely does have a right to defend itself, does have the right to once again retaliate, should it choose to, against this latest Israeli strike, they are frankly less than impressed with the show of force Israel have demonstrated, and have therefore fired back with, well, what amounts to smack talk, frankly. Video footage by Al-Jazeera has shown what appears to be a successful air defence against Israeli rocket fire, whilst flights were cancelled in Iranian airspace by the attack, but only for about 3 hours. And by morning in Tehran, as it had begun today, it began much like it does on every other day. It does appear that Israel made a really weak attack in the desperate hope they've saved face and won't prompt another Iranian military retaliation. On that, I guess we shall have to wait and see. But all in all, though, Israel looks all the worse for this, all the weaker and all the more petty. Right, so Israel have launched their third attack on Iran now, and for anyone watching this still in the belief this was a retaliation for Iran's last attack, as per the narrative by too much Western media today as it was before, the fact of the matter, as per the previous two attacks, is now well established. In April, Iran retaliated against Israel after Israel targeted the Iranian embassy in the Syrian capital of Damascus. That's Iranian sovereign soil, as embassies are. All seemingly part of Netanyahu's plan to drag the West into his battle, his fight, his war, notably the US, into a more direct conflict. He would love the US to go to war with Iran, far more so than he has any honest desire for a ceasefire and peace in the region. This strike saw 13 Iranian members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps killed, including the force commander. The second retaliation from Iran came at the beginning of this month, following in part the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas co-leader and lead ceasefire negotiator, which happened in Tehran itself, so again an attack on Iranian soil, an airstrike by Israel being how they did it. An airstrike by Israel on Iran's capital. In part, this strike was also in support of Iranian allies in both Gaza and Lebanon, upon which Israel had attempted to invade, and is still attempting to invade, plus the assassination by this point of Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah. But as covered by this channel yesterday, it's a very, very unsuccessful invasion, and the Israeli losses are frankly staggering at this point. That airstrike by Iran earlier this month, though, like the first one in April, focused on military targets only. The targets being the headquarters of Mossad, or nearby as was struck, the Nevatim air base south of the West Bank, where Netanyahu's Air Force One knockoff, the Wings of Zion, is kept, but also where Israel's precious F-35s are, and also tanks stationed in Gaza along the Netzarim corridor, the Israeli-constructed road across the middle of Gaza, leading quite close to the pier built by the US, supposedly to help get aid into Gaza, but is suspected of getting in a lot more than that. So what of this strike then? What have Israel done this time? What have they achieved? Well, they've created some surprise for one, as they've managed to prove they can only target military sites. No hospitals, no schools. All of a sudden, all of Netanyahu's tub thumping about Iran having made a big mistake in their last retaliation has translated into Israel choosing military targets to strike only, sparking claims that it is just a face-saving exercise once again, and they really, really, really don't want Iran to retaliate again this time. Now, it's been claimed for weeks that the US have been talking Israel down as well from targeting civilian areas, targeting Iranian nuclear sites as a for instance. Again, the go-to seems to be to attack civilian sites as where Israel want to go first. But whatever the truth of those backroom conversations was, this time around they did apparently only choose military targets. This is what Iran have said themselves. We've got no reason to really doubt that at this point. But that isn't to say it was any more successful of a strike. 20 sites were allegedly targeted in the areas of Elam, Khuzestan and Tehran, areas where it is believed Iran's air defence systems are based, along with its missile bases and their drone factories. And certainly at this point, again, as I've said, we've only got Iranian sources to go by on this at time of writing. Equally, to the contrary, the effectiveness of the strike, we've only got Israel's word for. So media coverage could be argued as being a little bit tit for tat at the moment. That said, however, Iran are claiming only limited strikes actually found their mark. Their air defences launched and intercepted much of what Israel threw at them. And certainly Al Jazeera has shared video footage which seemingly shows very much that is what the case was. Iran did not escape completely unscathed, however, as 2 of their soldiers were killed, as some of Israel's missiles did find their mark. But Iran have played this down. Their own analysts looking at this attack, it is claimed, and determined that Israel is actually incapable of a full-scale assault on Iran, and in what was certainly a full-mouthed swipe at the genocidal apartheid state, made it quite clear that Iran doesn't need another country to help protect it, unlike Israel. Over to the US to prove their point by no doubt handing billions more in aid to the blue and white state, I guess. We'll have to wait and see if that happens. Pretty much an inevitability still, I would imagine. But for Israel's part, though, this was a huge success. They've been tub-thumping and chest-bounding and all the rest of it because they put up videos featuring their favourite spokesperson, their apologist for everything, saying it all with a straight face. It was, of course, Mr. Pointy Daniel Hagari once again. And he said, in response to months of continuous attacks from the regime in Iran against the State of Israel, right now, the Israel Defense Forces is conducting precise strikes on military targets in Iran. The regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October 7th on 7 fronts, including direct attacks from Iranian soil. Like every other sovereign country in the world, the State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond. Our defensive and offensive capabilities are fully mobilized. We will do whatever necessary to defend the State of Israel and the people of Israel. Now, I've repeated that word for word from Hagari's video response. So did you note the use of the present tense in that? Yeah, it was actually pre-recorded. They were crowing from the rooftops before a missile had even struck, apparently. It's a convenient response now to blame Iran for all the attacks since October 7th. If that were true, why did you not go after them first then? Go to the source rather than choose to level Gaza. And let's not say it was about rescuing hostages, because for the most part Israel has utterly failed on that score. Does not seem to have come across even genuinely as having actually tried to put that first. How are you putting your own people first when actually you choose to kill them rather than allow them to be taken hostage to begin with those horrible Hannibal directives? None of that excuses the taking of hostages by Hamas, of course. But these are your claims, and the contradictions are pretty obvious now. If you're going to talk proxies, is Israel not just a proxy for the US or Western imperial interests, frankly, having a foothold in the Middle East? Needless to say, condemnation and support have come from where you would expect. Where Israel talks of its right as a sovereign nation to defend itself, so does Iran. And Israel have now directly attacked Iranian soil on 3 occasions. Those events elicited a response from Iran, a retaliation from Iran each and every time, which have led this year to the first time in Iran's history ever to directly attack Israeli soil. Iran is also a sovereign state, and it has a right to defend itself by Israel's own logic. But at the moment it seems to be mulling over whether to respond to an attack that, frankly, excusing the 2 IRGC soldiers who did lose their lives, to be a bit of a damp squib, to say the least. Condemnation of Israel's actions have come from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. These are not Iranian proxies. But equally, support for Israel has hurriedly come once more anyway, seemingly unable to get a statement out fast enough from our Zionists without qualification, as an example, Prime Minister Keir Starmer. I mentioned earlier that flights in and out of Iran returned to normal by around 5:30 our time. Just 2 hours later, though, at around 7:30 our time, whilst in Samoa, attending the biannual Commonwealth Conference, ahead of which Starmer was busy denying reparations for the UK's role in the slavery trade, because that's this former human rights lawyer's view on equality, and he's shown again by siding with Israel, despite them once more being the aggressor, and making a complete prat of himself in the process. He issued a statement which said, speaking at a press conference in Samoa, the Prime Minister said, "I am clear that Israel has the right to defend itself against Iranian aggression. I'm equally clear that we need to avoid further regional escalation and urge all sides to show restraint. Iran should not respond. We will continue to work with allies to de-escalate the situation across the region." Israel still has the right to defend itself against Iranian aggression, even when Iran, for the 3rd time, are the ones being fired on. You can't de-escalate Jack if you're going to keep blaming everything on one of the parties in the region. You cannot just talk to allies in the region to establish peace. It doesn't work that way. You have to talk to all sides. His idiocy is painful on foreign policy, but then we're now pretty used to that here in the UK. He's embarrassing us in Samoa, and now he's embarrassing us from Samoa. Will Iran strike back, though? That is the key question. Who knows? Perhaps this time Israel's strike has been so pathetic as to elicit pity from them more than anything else. But they do have that right to defend themselves again if they feel they need to. But what they don't need to do in the eyes of the world after this is prove that. Such is how poorly viewed Israel now is. And all Netanyahu has really done is frankly embarrass himself and put his nation and his people once again in the firing line. Frankly, I don't suppose Israel can afford to keep on attacking them when they are losing so heavily trying to invade Lebanon still. Though, of course, it is Lebanon attacking them, not at all coming to their allies' aid in the Palestinian people of Gaza as they have been since October 7th. Permanent victimhood the world no longer accepts from Israel. So if hearing just how badly they are getting it in Lebanon is something you would like to hear something more on, do check out this video recommendation as your suggested next watch, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.